that's just what I'm passionate about. Let's do the right thing. If you do the right thing, then you're compensated directly or indirectly, over time. And so that's what we've done here since 2002. We've just helped the people that come to the door, and some relationships are profitable and some aren't. But the bottom line is when they bury me in the ground someday, they're not going to say he ran a really good, efficient wealth management firm. He was the best salesman at his company. Like, no one says that. It's about the lives that you touch.
Exactly.
And I couldn't find my people.
Yes.
To do that. And so I had to create it.
Welcome to a Wiser Retirement podcast, where we believe the best financial advice should always be conflict-free. I'm your host, Michaela Dowdy, and guiding you to financial freedom today is my co-host, Casey Smith. We have turned the tables today. On today's episode, it is a little different because we are going to be talking about the heart and history of Wiser Wealth Management.
Whose idea was this? It wasn't my idea.
Really?
No.
I really thought it was yours.
No.
Was it?
No, someone put this in the in the agenda for we label all this stuff out like 6 months in advance, and somehow this one got slipped in after
they decided to throw you a
approved the
curveball.
list. I don't know. I it was requested by a listener. I do know that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. This
cool.
was a listener request.
I did not know that.
That I should be interviewed.
Well, there you go.
I hope I get the job.
I feel like I need to have a flashlight with like interrogating, like, okay, tell me about your life.
Right.
But exciting. So anyways, we are headed into, just getting to know you and getting to know all of the things of how you founded Wiser. But if you're new to the podcast, you might not know that Casey used to be an airline pilot, still is in some ways.
My own airline. Yes.
Your own airline, Casey Smith Airlines. But essentially, just getting into the first things, what initially sparked your interest in both aviation and finance? How do you pursue both of these?
Well, I grew up a Delta brat. So what that means is my dad worked at Delta, and you get to fly for free. I don't know where the brat comes from. They just call them Delta brats. So my dad got a job at Delta in the 80s, and we got to fly standby. He had to wear a coat and tie to go places. He had to look the part.
Yes.
Not anymore. Doesn't work that way anymore. And so I would sit in front of the airplane, and this is before 9/11, and you'd be taxiing out, and the doors would be open to the cockpit, and then the flight attendant would close the door right before takeoff. And so I would lean in and I would look up front. It's like, that is so cool. That is so cool. But I wore glasses. And at the time, you had to be a perfect specimen of a human being to be to be an airline pilot, because most people went through the military.
Oh, I did not know
that. So yeah, I would just lean over, and it was usually like an MD-88, because some of our favorite family trips were going to Washington, D.C., even for the day, take the first flight out, last flight back. And I was just like, that is so cool to do that. I was just fascinated by aviation, also fascinated by finance. And my parents gave me good advice. Is, if you want to pursue this aviation thing, that's great, but it's not a very stable job, which it wasn't. I mean, the airline industry has gone through a lot in different generations, but I also love finance. I was always enamored with Wall Street and what happens there, and stocks, and just thought I want to be a mutual fund manager early in my time in college. And I had a college professor that said, Casey, you're a leader. I don't think you're going to fit the corporate mold very well. You should consider personal finance as a career track. And I started looking into that. So this is really good. And I got my first job working for a company in Atlanta, and it was horrible. It was horrible. I had to sell annuities and life insurance, and it was terrible. I didn't believe in anything that I was doing. I felt like every client was a victim, of the firm. And so I did it for almost a year. And then I left, but I had a no compete and decided I'm going to try this flying thing, because I heard people can get hired who have corrective vision now. And that's what I did. I found a flight instructor, and we flew or studied 6 days a week. And then within 9 months, I got all the ratings on my own.
Oh, wow.
And got a job for Atlantic Southeast Airlines. Didn't have the job. I was about to head to like just transition program, and then 9/11 happened. There was no jobs. And so long story short, I ended up going through a different transition program, and I got on with a company called Colgan Air, based out of Bar Harbor, Maine, which is my base. And I flew there for a couple of years and kept applying every single month. I would apply for ASA, Delta Connection, every single month. And after almost 2 years, I got a phone call, got the job, and didn't have to commute to the Northeast anymore. And I started flying jets for ASA, CRJ 200 and 700. And then I had all this free time on my hands because I'm a big time jet pilot, right?
Yes.
And so I was like, well, what am I going to do? So I really love this fee only financial planning business model. And I didn't create it. I was not the creator of the fee only model, but it was definitely a model that already existed, but it was well hidden because people didn't know how to grow and scale it really. And so that's something I became very passionate about, became very active in our union's retirement and insurance committee. And from there, Wiser was born. You know, and the story behind Wiser, I guess, is I had my own company until 2007, and I bought Wiser Financial, which became Wiser Wealth Management. We were a shell of, I think we had $10 million in assets when I bought it in 2007. So it was it's a one room, one shop kind of purchase, but it was affordable. And that's how they both became married at that point, where I was still flying mostly at night and then was here during the daytime. And then by 2014, I convinced myself it was time to just be Wiser and not fly anymore. Yeah. So my last commercial flight was in July of 2014, I believe.
Oh, wow. I really thought it was 2010. I don't know why I had that in my head that 2010 was your last flight.
Good round number. But yeah, so I have a Cessna 182 now and still get my flying kicks, flying much slower and lower than commercial aviation, but
a little less stressful maybe.
Sometimes, yes. Yeah.
Well, how do you feel like your skills have developed you as an airline pilot, like contributing to the success of Wiser?
Risk management would be number one. What I liked about being a business owner and running Wiser, growing Wiser, and also being an airline pilot is, flying commercially a lot of times is like watching paint dry. There's just not much going on. You're just kind of sitting there staring out the window. But when I was disconnected from Wiser, I was able to think about, it's like being my own retreat, I guess. I was able to on my overnights, I'd be reading business books. I was able to kind of jot notes down as I thought about things when we were flying, and also people, particular cases I was working on. I would think, what if we did this, or what if we did that? So being a dual career, and specifically aviation, allowed me to, I feel like, just focus on things more, where a lot of people get stuck in the job of being a planner that they're just become a technician. They don't get to be the manager. But as far as risk, the crossover is risk management. Flying commercial airplanes is all about risk management, and you have processes that you do every single time. But sometimes those processes don't go the way you thought they would. And much like portfolio management is that way, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's probably the biggest connection, is just how you think about risk.
Gotcha. So like, what do you think inspired you to really make that transition from airline pilot to?
You mean from being both to one?
Yes.
You want to build a successful company. And for me, healthcare was very expensive when we first started, being a family of, 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. Right. And so, staying on the airlines certainly helped cover my healthcare cost. I dropped all my trips as much as I could. So I did not fly as much as you think a person would normally be flying. But for me in 2014, my body just said, okay, you can't keep flying all night and working all day. Like you're going to have you're going to have to do something different. And I had a little medical event that enabled me to step away from flying for about 6 months. And I kind of walked around here and I was like, so what do you guys do here all day exactly? and so that to me, it was like, okay, I got to picture my life for 6 months with no aviation. And at the time, it was harder to hide, harder to drop schedules. And for me, it was time to kind of step away. I had two paths ahead of me. I had this highway that I felt like, okay, I've worked through the worst 10 years in aviation, other than maybe the actual deregulation when Eastern and Pan Am were going out of business. I had 9/11. I had a financial crisis. US Airways had 2 bankruptcies when I was flying. Delta had 1, Northwest had 1, Continental had 1, United had 1. So it wasn't the best of times in aviation. And so for me, I felt like, okay, well, I flew through the worst. It probably is going to get better. And that's probably easy for me to go do that. But there's also this business over here called Wiser that's a fee-only company that I'm very passionate about. And to me, this was the narrow road. And for me, I felt like the narrow road was better, maybe for me and my family and my passion for what I wanted to accomplish in my lifetime, to go this way. And that's why I chose it. I do still miss flying, not the 4:30 wake up calls and, Minneapolis or someplace like that. Right. But, I would say that I also realized this, like, so I flew a CRJ. It was pretty small airplane. It was 50 people on the 200 model. But I would look at the 777s and the 747s and the 767s, and I'm like, man, those would be really cool to go fly that. And I quickly learned it's really cool to say that you fly it. It's another thing to do it. So, so that was another decision maker for me, because when ETFs were launched in 2004, it became very prominent. I realized that we can build whole portfolios with ETFs. I started this. Speaking in Asia about ETFs because they weren't there yet. And long story how I got roped into that. But we went to Singapore, we went to Tokyo, we went to Shanghai, and we participated in these large conferences. And I learned that my body doesn't do well with massive time change like that. Oh. And the rest of us in our group that went they'd be fine. But I don't sleep on airplanes. I can never sleep on airplanes.
Oh, so the jet lag just really got you.
It was horrible. It was even like traveling now to Europe, you start to kind of fall asleep, and then I'll hear the engines rev up. Is because they're doing these step climbs. And so in my head, I go, oh, they're doing a step climb here. I wonder how much fuel they burn in the climb versus, I just start going through all the scenarios in my head. Is like, I can't rest my mind. So we learned I learned very quickly that international flying was something that I was not going to be able to do and be alive probably.
Gotcha. Because
of my just inability to adjust to time change, which makes you appreciate the military, right?
Definitely.
And that fly around the world. So that was kind of a sign to me, is like, okay, well, I'm going to be flying something up and down the East Coast because that's all my body really likes to do, which is less glamorous than, the big things that go far away. But, so anyway, that was part of it. I don't think I'd lost the passion for aviation. I just realized that, for me, I felt like there was a different path, and what I've loved about what we've done here is that a third of our client base are airline pilots. And so I get to live vicariously through their stories. And, almost every week I'm getting pictures from somebody saying, hey, dude, check this out, which I really appreciate. I mean, that makes me feel like I'm still part of the group, Yeah.
Well, it's a special connection I feel like you're able to form with clients because you have sat in that seat. And so y'all can speak on your own experiences right. and actually understand
right.
the aviation industry that so many people don't.
I think the experience now is probably different. I think when I was finishing up in aviation, the world was becoming less respectful of authority. You think about, the whole thing with police officers, defund police and all that stuff that happened. And I think it started with the airport first, where, the captain would get out of the seat and say, hey, sir, you have to stop behaving like this. And they don't care.
Yeah.
to the point now where they shouldn't get out of the seat anymore because they're going to be on videos and all this other stuff. And for me, that was, you know, an old man throwing a green suitcase at me and the flight attendant because it wouldn't fit in the overhead bin. And I was like, oh, I think the world's changing. Some old guy, some old drunk guy just chunked a 1970s green suitcase at me. And I think it's time to just like move on to something else. Right.
Yes. So I guess you've talked about it a few times now, the fee only model that you selected for Wiser. How did you come across choosing that we would be a fee only firm?
Not being a fee only firm is how I chose to be a fee only firm. So the 1 year I spent at AXA Equitable in downtown Atlanta was miserable. The people who worked there had to cold call everybody. So I think Tuesdays, Thursday nights or something like that were nights you had to cold call people. And I'm not good at that. I'm very passionate about what I do, but I don't like that rejection over and over again. So you'd have to call 100 people and you might get one person to say yes for a meeting. And you have to get 10 of those people to actually get a sale. And that's not what I'm good at. My boss would walk around the office and he would say things like, there's 3 people in this relationship, 2 better be making effing money. And it wasn't the client, it was the company and the advisor. I was on one case where I guess it was a bit of a test. They said, hey, which annuity would you sell this person? So I went and studied all the prospectus about the annuities and I chose option C. And I was pulled into the boss's office and why would you choose annuity C? And I said, because it's the same thing, but it is A and B, but she doesn't have to get her money locked up as much and it's cheaper. And then the door slams. And then I get the, your revenue is the most important thing. And people get frustrated with me for talking about, annuity salesmen and all that stuff all the time, but I actually live that life and I know what happens behind the scenes. And that nice guy from Sunday School is also getting yelled at for not generating enough revenue and you're the next victim. So, I picked up a white paper at the time that was floating around that office about fee only. And I read about it. It was something kind of SEC brief or something. And I remember showing it to one of the vice presidents and he was like, oh yeah, I read that article too. That's just a fad. It won't last very long. But my entrepreneurship brain started kicking in and I was like, I could totally see how this works. And I never want to be in a position where I'm at a function and I'm talking to somebody and I'm the guy that sells something. Right.
Yeah.
I just want to have a normal conversation with people. I don't want to be always jockeying myself in position to sell them something.
Exactly.
Does that make sense?
Yes. No, exactly.
I want to be on the same side with them. I want to be a part of their extended family that's helping solve problems. And that's the culture that I want to build. And it's very hard to do that if you don't have your own firm. At least for me in 2001 and 2, because that's not how this world's built. That's not how financial services is built. We're all called financial advisors, but only 4% of us work this way. Yeah. And I want to be part of that 4%.
Exactly.
I don't want to be a Merrill Lynch. I don't want to be a UBS. There's a huge conflict of interest and it might be really nice people working there. Most human beings are, as a whole, pretty nice people, right? Yes. But it doesn't mean that their toolbox is built correctly. And so I'm just very passionate with that. And so for me, I shift to the polar opposite side. You have to prove to me that that annuity is what is best for you. Yes. Right?
Exactly.
And I'm pretty good at math. Not so good with words, but I'm pretty good with math. And the math just doesn't add up. I can't make it work. Now the guys who sell them and the ladies that sell them can, but that's because they have an incentive to make the math work where I don't. Our team doesn't. We get compensated by the client directly to solve the problem and we can be our own annuity. Right.
Yes, exactly.
So I could talk about that for hours and I do on other podcasts, but that's just what I'm passionate about. Let's do the right thing. If you do the right thing, then you're compensated directly or indirectly, over time. And so that's what we've done here since 2002. We've just helped the people that come to the door and some relationships are profitable and some aren't. But the bottom line is when they bury me in the ground someday, they're not going to say he ran a really good, efficient wealth management firm. He was the best salesman at his company. Like no one says that. It's about the lives that you touch.
Exactly.
And I couldn't find my people to do that. And so I had to create it.
Yeah. Well, I feel like it's what you talk about, like the heart of service. And at the end of the day, like it's going to be your heart of service that's remembered.
Absolutely.
And that has to be the forefront going into every client conversation, which is something we talk about like every Monday morning.
Right.
And every day.
Right. But, yeah. We don't get us wrong. We set goals, but and then we go over those goals on Mondays. But when you sit in a meeting, you know, Shauna had a meeting recently. It was a pretty big prospect. And I reminded her before the meeting, I said, I don't care if you get this prospect or not. I just want you to help them. And she, you know, she's kind of like, well, thank you for that. but seriously, I don't care if you win the prospect or not, just help them. That's kind of what the theme that I'm trying to do here now, which I think we have the best crew here we've ever had. And they all get that because they also, Shauna and Missy have also come from really bad situations.
Definitely. And I feel like the whole thing we've been talking about here is just building that trust and that repertoire with our clients and helping them like to feel like they can trust a financial advisor, because there are so many that are out there that aren't necessarily out for their best interest.
Oh yeah.
And so how do you feel like we're doing that to build and maintain trust with our clients?
Well, I never intended it to be this way, but we have a flat fee planning program. And it was really built honestly for the airline pilots because they don't need money. They don't need people managing their money. The fact that they would hire someone to manage their 401k it's a hoax. They're going to lose upwards of $3 million in their 401k plan if they were hired in their 30s at Delta United American, if they're paying 50 basis points or 0.5% to 1% of their fees. And it's not necessary. We worked really hard as a union to get great 401k benefits, and they're squandering it by hiring these leeches. But what's happened with that is our flat fee planning program has also been a great way for people to test drive our firm without committing to money management. And so what I have found is that people will start that process after they go through the 3-step planning process, or 4, depending on their situation, that we've now have earned their trust, and they'll switch to the assets under management model, which is never our goal. That's just what's happened. And so I find that we've become we seem to be attracting a lot of people that have lost faith in the financial advising community because they were burnt really bad by somebody.
Definitely.
But when they realize that we don't care if they're AUM, we don't care if they're flat fee, if we just want to help them, then I think that translates through. And so it's, that part I'm really proud about, but that wasn't necessarily the intention.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. No, that makes a lot of sense. Well, I feel like it's just, having those kinds of conversations and watching those happen where in those consultations, it's like, oh, well, you can go either path, but we're not going to steer you into AUM unless that's where you want to be.
Yeah.
And,
well, as we become more successful too, I want to help anybody who's asking for help, or I'll find help for them. But also there's so many new people that come in every single week. I think part of it is kind of like, I really don't care if you don't choose me.
Yes.
Whereas so many people are, they need that next sale.
Yeah.
We don't need another client to be successful as a firm. We can be just fine staying right where we are. But the fact that we do want to help them, I think shines through. It's kind of like that book, Freakonomics, where they talk about, are you a better parent because you read a child book or a raising kids book, something around that. And the answer is no. You're a better parent because you wanted to read a book about how to raise children.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
It's the heart behind it.
It's the heart behind it. And I think that's what shines through in our people here. And, for you and Grace and William, Missy and Sean and I were able to set the example of this is how you help people, where if you've been in a different environment, your vision of what this should look like would be very different.
Definitely. Definitely. So I guess when we're having clients come in, What are you seeing as the most common financial mistakes?
Oh, there's probably a lot. I think for people who are trying to get their finances in order and they start having some excess income, and how they go about eliminating debt. They're sending $100 here, $200 here extra per month. And you really just need to go conquer one thing at a time and then celebrate that when you conquer it. Don't go back into debt because of it. But I would say for those people, it's just setting goals and making sure that you're conquering one thing at a time. Another thing that I see is people who are making good money for the first time, they get really sideways on how much taxes they're paying, and taxes suck. I'm right there with them. But as long as you have a good CPA or have done some tax planning, the reality is that you're making good money. You're probably in the top 5 to 1% of income earners in the country, and you're still making money. It's just that you're keeping 40 or 60 cents on it of the dollar, right? Yeah. It's not like you're not getting a dollar. Like some countries, you pass a certain threshold, it all just goes to the government. We're not that way here. So it's really more of a mindset of don't be a victim because of that, but be proud of what you've accomplished. Be tax smart.
Yes.
And focus that way. And then probably the third one, which I think we touched on our last podcast, is I want to start a business to lose money, to lower my taxes. and those conversations are always like, let's talk. How do you think taxes work? So that's always I think a mistake that people make is let's go lose more money to save money. It doesn't make sense.
No. Are you curious why annuities keep coming up as a potential investment option? People are often told that annuities can effectively mitigate investment risks and help secure their financial future. However, annuities often benefit the salesperson and might not be the best choice for you as a consumer. To learn more about the various types of annuities, the negatives of owning them, and better investment alternatives, we have a free ebook on our website just for you. To download our ebook, Buyer Beware, Why Do They Keep Trying to Sell You That Annuity? Simply click the link in the episode notes or visit wiserinvestor.com/guides. Now let's get back to the episode. So how would you describe your investment philosophy and approach to financial planning?
Well, it's been a bit of a journey. So I'm 46. So when I started my firm, everything was just asset management. There really wasn't planning. People would just walk in and say, I got $500,000. Will you manage it for me? I can't believe there's still firms that's all they do, which is majority of our industry, which is crazy to me. So what I started realizing is we're going to have computers manage money for us in the future. This was me 18 years ago. And so I decided that, there's so much more than just managing someone's money. Is like, you have to understand goals, set goals, and understand the big picture. So that's where planning came in. And I realized that in investing, it's really hard to beat the S&P 500. There's a 1% chance an active manager beats the S&P over a 20-year period. And I started thinking, well, how long do I want to have a client? Well, we have a 99% retention ratio. So clients are here for lifetime mostly. So if you want to win, I hate losing with a passion. I hate losing. So if you want to win, then to me, it makes the most sense to be using low cost index funds and then spend your time that you are going to spend picking stocks that are going to underperform the S&P, spend your time focused on the planning side. So the planning means, are you saving enough? Are we allocated properly? What's our retirement income going to be? If my house burnt down, can we get it replaced? If I died, will my family make it to the finish line? If I die, do I have proper estate planning in place? What happens when my executor dies before me or becomes incapacitated? What happens if I had 2 more kids and now I don't have enough life insurance? What about long-term care? Do I have a situation where my kids are going to have to take care of me, or am I going to be able to pick the nicest place in town to be able to live comfortably and cared for well with my family visiting me? These are all concerns that people think about, but you have to go to salespeople to address every single one of those. And so what I want to do is create, and what we did, what I should say, is created a planning process that covers all that, but the client's not being sold anything. They're being advised. And so if they need that product, then we have great professionals that sell those. We receive no kickbacks whatsoever. And that's the kind of relationship that I want Wiser to have with its clients, where we're not selling anything. We're only providing advice. It's no different than sitting down with a family member going, hey, I'm struggling with this, except we actually know something and we have licenses and we have designations and we're experts, right?
Yes. Knowing your client is so important. And I think with that, it's kind of knowing what you're talking about, their risk tolerance and risk management. And so what are the current market trends or economic factors that you're keeping an eye on for advising our clients?
You know, obviously we were in a contentious election cycle. I think they're going to keep getting worse every 4 years, thanks to social media and people just not being neighborly. It's really easy to hide behind a computer, and therefore, I'll also actually use those same computers. We have news media preying on people. You know, watch this, subscribe to this, buy this newsletter, buy gold. It's always buy gold. After 2 a.m., it's buy gold and silver. That's all you can do. So it's in the end, I need capitalism to work, continue to work. I need companies to make money, and we need people to focus on the companies that make money. The S&P 500 and related indexes are somewhat self-healing in that the best companies filter to the top. And so I don't get too concerned about economic activities in the short term, because a lot of times it turns political in those conversations. I glance through the Wall Street Journal every couple of days, just to make sure that I'm up on speed of what's happening. But you know, where we are today, if Kamala Harris gets elected or if Donald Trump gets elected, I think to our portfolios, it just doesn't really matter. Quite honestly, I have my candidate that I would probably prefer to win for maybe more selfish reasons than anything from a tax perspective. Yeah. But I think that, you know, there are other trends to monitor. Fortunately for me, we have Andrew Pratt here, the king of data, who stays on top of all that. And if something goes crazy, I'll walk in his office and say, dude, what happened yesterday?
Like us, like 3 weeks ago.
In his Georgia Tech analytical way, he tells me what happened yesterday. And then if I need to regurgitate that to the client base, then I will. But I am not putting, my joy is not what happens in the markets on a daily basis. And so I'm trying to live the life that I want my clients to live. Yes. And that no one's allowed to steal your joy. So if you're watching CNN, you walk away, or Fox or whatever you watch, and you walk away angry, that media is controlling you. Exactly. And so I don't want that controlling me. So from a perspective of what happens if interest rates fall or rise, or what happens, you know, in this situation, and why are the markets reacting? We know all that. I've been doing this for 24 years. Andrew's been doing it similar. Missy and Shauna have been doing it longer than I have. So in the end, we all have the wisdom here to get through it. But I don't think there's any one thing that's going to derail us, because you know what happens? They pivot. You know, I promise you, if Coke couldn't sell Coca-Cola anymore, they're going to come up with something else to sell. Right? Yes, exactly. Or they'll go away and they'll shrink in the S&P 500 and a new company called Tesla or somebody else will appear right in the S&P. Yes. So I don't focus so much on the day to day, but I do focus on long-term success. And that comes from, my kids will probably never listen to this podcast, but I tell my son all the time, make your bed every single day. Yeah. Make your bed every single day. And he kind of laughs at me. I mean, he's 19 now, so I guess he can laugh because it's less of an instruction, more of a suggestion.
Yes.
But that's what we're doing in portfolios. We're making our bed every single day. We're doing the same repetition. We're putting money into the account every single paycheck. If we're retired, right, we're withdrawing the same amount in a steady fashion, knowing that we won't run out before age 95. It's all in the good behavior that we want to reinforce. Does that make sense?
No, definitely. And I think you see that even with our clients, like when it was, we're having different downfalls in the market at different points, and our phones aren't necessarily blowing up like crazy,
right.
With clients being like, oh my gosh, my account's down,
that's right.
50 grand. It's like, yeah, but it's going to be okay. And there's a lot of firms where they're having to field those calls all day long.
Well, it's because they put their success on what they could do in their portfolio. And I'm literally telling every single client here, I have nothing to do with that success in your portfolio. Exactly. It's the market's doing what the markets do. Now we can take out volatility. We can add volatility. But when you own 6,700 stocks and 12,000 bonds, you're not going to go to zero. And if you carry enough cash as a retiree to weather a 2-year storm, you're going to be fine. You just need us to do that math officially and then give you the confidence and also be here to answer the phone and return emails.
Yes.
When you are panicked, and rightly so sometimes.
Yes, exactly. And speaking on that, for talking about past trends and future trends, such as, the internet and technology becoming more prominent in the space, what do you see as the future trends in the wealth management space?
Well, obviously it goes without saying AI at this point. I'm test driving a platform right now called Jump that essentially takes the place of a planning associate. Planning associates, we can do other things instead of just take notes now. But it's pretty neat where I could have a consultation with someone by myself. It will take notes. It will put it into our CRM software. It'll send a follow-up email. It will do everything that the human would do. And you think about our ability to use that in a very efficient manner to save time is going to be huge. So it's not about replacing jobs necessarily, but it's about having more meaningful work for associates to learn the process.
Yeah.
Right. And it allows me to kind of be on the run a little more and know that, well, if, Grace is assigned to me, so if Grace couldn't be there, then I do have this program and it's going to kind of catch everything and make sure the basics still get done. Otherwise in AI, there's really no AI that people are using, like picking stocks right now, that I'm aware of. Wouldn't probably trust it at this point. But if we, so anyway, I see that trend. I also see it just a continued movement toward asset management being a lot more passive, more firms focusing on the planning front, which we've been there for 20 years at this point. So it's or probably not that much, 18 years. I see that the value of an advisor becomes more important the more crazy the world gets as we go forward. Unfortunately, I see less people being fee only. I continue to see the fee base grow. So, so in fee based, they're fiduciaries, and when they prepare the plan, but when they're done with the plan, they can sell you the same crap that they were going to sell you at the brokerage house. And so I see fee based continue to be the bigger grower in our industry, which is an advantage to us. But unfortunately, there's just going to be a lot of people taking advantage of.
Yeah, definitely. So what advice would you give to someone who's looking to enter the wealth management industry or transition from a completely different field?
Well, it's a lot easier now than it was for me, which I think is a good thing. But you've got to find a firm that you believe in the mission, because you should be working long hours in your 20s, so you can work less hours in your 30s, and in your 40s, maybe you can be more in a management role and more coasting, right? But I think it's important that they find something they believe in. I can't imagine anything worse than driving to work every day going, oh, this sucks.
Yes.
So I would say focus on a fee only. There are some good fee based firms out there that still offer the insurance products, but maybe they're not putting a whole, it's not part of your quota.
Yeah.
Right. I would focus on coming in as a support person and learning. I would stay away from jobs that require you to cold call people and hunt people down. So that'd be your Northwestern Mutual jobs and your Edward Jones jobs. You can be successful there. I wouldn't sleep at night, quite honestly. I think there's a huge moral conflict, at least in my mind, for being at those two firms and the firms like them. So I would focus on that. And then I would focus on, if you're coming out of school with a finance degree or a financial planning degree, then I think you can work on that for a little bit, but you got to be working on the CFP, so be a certified financial planner, because that's going to give you the more real world answers that they don't really teach you in school. And then, just find a home and go build from there.
There you go. Great advice. So how would you say you've been able to maintain a healthy work-life balance?
There is no work-life balance.
See, that's where I saw this question and I was like, this is an interesting question. I was like,
I look, this is what I do for me. And I don't know, some people work to live and some people live to work. So I have a friend of mine in this business that I feel like he has set up himself to be at home a lot and is able to travel and go on the road a lot. But that's just not me. I live to work. This is my calling. This is what I do. We had a week where we won a really large client, and we had a week where the same week we had a client get out of like some terrible number of credit card debts, like $80-something thousand in credit card debt. I was equally happy about both.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. I would say my second passion would definitely be my kids. So we've got Ethan, who's at Mississippi State playing golf. And that's one of the reasons I quit flying when he was 9 years old. Was because he wanted to play in these U.S. kids golf tournaments, which are on weekends. And I was a junior captain and I couldn't hold weekends off. And I was like, man, my wife's not going to take him. She doesn't know golf. I got to do this. And so that was one of the deciding factors. And so to see him at Mississippi State, sorry, proud dad moment is, that's just, that was one of my goals for him, was to see him achieve his goal. And then my daughter was like, hey, I can trump that. And she's done this whole thing with the horse world, and she won a bronze medal in they used to call it Junior Olympics. It's called the Young Rider Championships now, up in Maryland. And I was really proud of her, for doing that. And so, for me, I want my kids to understand that there's a, and I have Owen too. He's baseball. I call Owen my normal kid. He's probably the sweetest of the three. And I would say that in front of everyone. But maybe not quite as driven as the first two. So they're all very different. And he's only 12. He's still figuring some things out. But, for me, I want them to understand that I've worked hard so they have opportunities. And that's important. When we do financial planning for our clients, there's a box in the top left and I write a mission statement for them. Right. And I take a lot of pride in that, because for me, it's like seeing them do things that maybe I wish I could have done. Yeah. Not the horse thing, but and I love her, that she loves horses and she's doing well, but that's not in my risk tolerance to be riding horses.
You don't want to jump 10 feet in the air, or 8 feet, however high they jump.
No, she's such an adrenaline junkie and she's so good at it. And I just watch in awe going, please just not have to call an ambulance. But it's setting goals. So for me, it's just important that I'm here working so they can go achieve the things that they want to do. And as you know, I'm on the road a lot. Yes. So, next week we head to the AEC championships in Kentucky with Kate. Ethan, his sophomore, junior, senior had tournaments that were taking almost a week to compete in. I don't know what's going to be in store for him in college golf. I don't know much about that. I'm still learning a little bit. He has to make a team now. Yes. He has to play well enough to be on the travel team. And then Owen has started travel baseball, where we're in Cooperstown for a week. So it's important that they're getting time, right? And they remember that. So that's the important. I think that's what drives me. And then that they're setting goals. So every year I have them write down what their goals are, and so I guess my work-life balance probably looks a little different because I'll break out a laptop in a corner somewhere and I'll work for a few hours. Here and there, where I can, but because you guys are so good, I'm needed less around here. I mean, I was down for a count sick, was a couple months ago.
Was it that long ago?
I think it was. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I was out for a whole week and this place just ran without me. And I was like, oh my gosh, they don't even need me anymore. Do I have any value? I don't know if I have any value anymore.
No, we still needed you.
I was telling Alexa, I was just like, you guys don't even need me. She's like, you just need people. Chill out.
You set the vision. We just help make it happen.
That's right.
Without you, we wouldn't have a vision caster.
That's right. So my work-life balance, I think the whole thing's a hoax, quite honestly. I think I hear these 20-year-olds talking about work-life balance. It's like, dude, you got work. Go conquer something, right? Because there's going to be a point where you're staring at a mini you, and then you're going to need some work-life balance. You need to be present. But at the beginning, you don't have to be present for anybody, right? Yeah. Just go make your dreams happen in your 20s. That's kind of what I did. I mean, I was flying planes. I was building this thing. And what was it all for? It was because I've got 3 kids of my own that also want to go conquer dreams, and I can go help them now. So I think we get that a little mixed up, and sometimes it's too much work, and sometimes it's too much time at home. It kind of goes in waves. Yeah. But I'm going to side on the work side because to me, this is my mission. This is what I do.
And I think it's like that difference of being so passionate about your work, I think is what makes it so enjoyable for you. It's like you actually truly enjoy what you're doing. Yeah. And so it makes it where the work-life balance is that you want to be enjoying work.
Let's go change people's lives. Let's get people the confidence to go live their life. Yeah. Some people come in here and they're I don't want to say they're scared, but they're nervous about the future. Can they do this? Can they do that? Well, let's go give them the confidence to go live their life the way I get to live my life. Let's in other cases, let's tell them they got to stop living less life and focus on resources that allow them to not be in the care of the state in their old age, right?
Well, in that note, what are your top 3 personal finance tips for individuals looking to improve their financial health?
Pay yourself first. Don't get wrapped up in how much you're spending on coffees and all that stuff. You still have to enjoy life, but understand what you have to have for the future and put that away. Start there. I'd say if it's young people, avoid debt at all costs, drive the older car, live in maybe a little bit smaller house, because you're going to have choices at some point, and you need to make sure that you have options. And the only way to do that is not to be a slave to somebody. If you want to change jobs, that's great, but maybe you need to wait 6 months before you find the perfect job, right? You're unemployed. You can do that if you have savings. Exactly. Right. So, so I think it's pay yourself first, keep debt pared down. And then I think, the third one is not something that you hear from financial advisors very often, but, enjoy life, make memories. And the financial tip there is it's okay to go spend money sometimes. Yeah. And do something that you'll always remember the rest of your life. And that was fun. And I remember when. Yeah. Right. Exactly. Because that's our unique perspective, is that we get to see so many families. Like I see so many successful families with the worst kids, and I see what people would consider just hardworking families, but not super successful, with great kids. Right. And so where's the difference? What's the difference there? And I get to ask them. Yeah. I get to say, hey, you have great kids. Tell me some parenting tips. And I get them, and I got to use them. Right. So yeah. But also see people, in their 80s that say they wish they had. Yes. Because in some sense we become very familiar with these families, and they were very comfortable and talking to us, and they know about us as well and our kids. I mean, geez, I feel like a quarter of our client base helped raise my son because he used to come to work with me, right? My oldest, Ethan. And they ask all the time about Ethan.
They do. That's one of their first questions when they walk in. How's Ethan?
That's right. Exactly. So it's a situation where you don't want to have regrets, which is one of the reasons I got into aviation, because I always wanted to do it. And I don't think that's something you do in your 80s, right? Or even 60s for that matter. So yeah, just make sure that you're living the best life in an obviously responsible manner, but don't be afraid to make memories.
Yes. So speaking on people that have like really just spoken into you of like how to, you know, be the best parent, be the best advisor, who have been your biggest inspirations and like influences in your career?
You know, career, I don't know that I have any one person. I have some friends that are in this business that help me. You know, Tim Goodwin's probably one of them. We're competitors. Well, I don't know if we're competitors. I don't ever really consider us competitors, but we challenge each other. And I think over the years, he's helped me through some things, just with some light conversations, nothing heavy. I like to read. I haven't done as much lately, but always reading to solve problems. Like I wanted to be the best in customer service. I read like 20 books on customer service in 1 year. And we all know my favorite, you know, Danny Meyer, Setting the Table was my favorite. I thought that was a really good book. So a combination of books. I think as far as life goes, yeah, you know, I'm very much take charge, maybe bull in the china shop occasionally with things, but probably my grandfather, who is a pastor. I'm his caregiver right now. We're going through a lot. And he's 96, but he always was able to exhibit Christ-like love. And you think about what Christ-like love is, it's unconditional love. So the whole thing with the love of Christ is you don't have to be clean. Right. Some people think, oh, I gotta straighten up my life. Then I go to church, and that's not really how that works. In fact, you should be at church when you're the dirtiest. Right. And so Christ-like love is letting a homeless man take up in your backyard and giving him shelter. I had to run that poor man off because he was taking advantage of him. But I just saw that in his ministry growing up, that he was helping people that no one else would really talk to. And that's some similarities in what we're doing, in that we help people all the time that would not qualify to be at a wealth management firm. Exactly. We can't make it our primary business, but we're willing to reach down and help someone up. We're willing to be a doorstop. Yes. And keep the door open for people to make sure that they have the advice that they're looking for. And so I see that some way that kind of crosses over, where he is a true ministry, but I think in what we're doing here is it has some parallels with that. And so I saw him being taken advantage of and just turn the other cheek. Yeah. Never really anger. And so that's the person that we get to care for now, because you know, of the love and respect he showed for us growing up and the mentorship. So.
Exactly. Okay. That's a beautiful story. So fun last question.
Yeah.
You're taking your last flight. Where are you flying? Or no, what are you flying and where are you going?
This is a Sporties podcast question. They ask that in all the Sporties podcast. So what am I flying and where am I flying it? Well, unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know. I don't have that much time. I don't have any time in like an Airbus or a Boeing, right? I was a regional pilot, so we flew CRJs. So really the only thing I can compare it to is a CRJ or a Cessna 182. And I do enjoy flying the Cessna 182, but I think if I was going to go to my last flight, I do have some time in the CRJ 700. I'd probably go the CRJ 700 and I would fly to Washington, DC, Washington Reagan. That's where I would go. Growing up as a kid, the Air and Space Museum was always a great inspiration. And now I'm old enough that the planes they flew are in the museum. But I always enjoy flying into Reagan, hopping on the subway, the metro, and going to the Smithsonian's. And I love the art gallery and I love the Air and Space Museum. And so that's what I would do. I would fly a CRJ 200. And then I don't know how we get home if that's my last flight going there. I guess we're driving back.
Maybe it's just that you would then just hop on a flight, but you would be flying.
Yeah, it wouldn't be flying. It's like my retirement flight or something. Too young for that. But yeah, that's probably what I probably do. I mean, we've been in some other cool scenarios. I guess it was about a year and a half ago, we were coming back from somewhere and our route of flight kind of followed the Mississippi River for a little while. And I was down at 6,000 feet because it was a little smoother there. And that was really cool. So part of me thinks, I don't know, maybe that one on a nice clear day, smooth air. But I think going back to something more heavier and faster would be kind of cool as a last flight. So great question. Thank you for finding that.
Well, thanks for joining the pod on the other side of the table this
That's
time.
Right. I know you've done a good job. Maybe I can get replaced in this position too.
Oh goodness. I don't know about that. Not yet. It's fun, but I still think you have the hosting capability.
Maybe.
Okay. Well, thank you for listening to today's episode. If you're interested in learning more about Wiser Wealth Management or want to schedule a consultation to meet with one of our fiduciary financial advisors, you can do so by going to thewiserinvestor.com, or you can click the link in the episode notes. See you next week.
Thanks, guys. See you.